Extra, extra, read all about it as we will be spoiling all contents from this week's episode in this podcast recap. View at your own discretion.
You've been warned.
Welcome to the house, my friends. We are back to discuss the next episode of Invincible. Going to be very fun. We're going to try and say Invincible as many times as we possibly can on this podcast, so stay tuned. I'm your podcast host, Noah Marano. And back again with my leading man, in fact, the winner for Best Male Actor in a Leading Role goes to the Mr. Lisan Al-Gaib.
Hey, how about that? Listen, I'm so happy that you brought this up, actually. I'm so happy that, one, Mr. Chalamet won, and two, I wish I was him, but I'm not. But I have something I got to get off my chest.
Please.
If you're okay with this. Before I do, we've known each other for a good bit, right? How long would you say we've been friends? Not only friends, best friends.
I would say, 6 years now?
6 years. So in those 6 years, would you say that cursing is like not in my everyday vocabulary? It's not something that you hear on the day-to-day, something that I do.
No, in fact, it's something you steer clear of almost entirely.
Almost entirely. Okay, cool. Now that we've just established that, I've got a message for Timothy. Like, I don't know if he's gonna watch this.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope he does.
He's a big podcast guy, so maybe.
Yeah. Big fan here. And to that, Timothy, I need to say, fuck them. Fuck those people that are saying that your message was not humble, that it was cocky, that it was arrogant. Fuck them.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Screw all of the. Fuck this guy. If he disagrees with what you said, fuck this guy.
Well,
all right.
I don't at all.
Good.
I'm with you. Fuck him.
You are on a generational heat check right now with the movies that you're being a part of, and I'm so proud of you. And you have a lifelong fan in me, and so
I actually thought about that the other day. I was like, "There's gonna be a point in like 30 years when I'm like sitting with my kids, and I'm like showing them a movie, and I'm like, this is like my favorite actor. Like, this is him. This is what he's done." Because I remember I just remember sitting down with my dad and like seeing movies.
Yeah.
And my dad and I'd be like, who are these people? And like this guy was like this, and this, like big guy. I got no concept, right? Way back in the 80s,
and he's
90s.
saying names, and
you're like, who's that?
Cool.
Like Timmy's gonna be one of those guys. He's cemented himself as like I don't think I've ever had like a single favorite actor.
Would you say he's your
Absolutely not even close?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say number one for me is Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, that's fair.
And number two would probably be
Pedro's high
Timothy.
on that. Like everybody else, I kind of just have like a cloud of guys I like that I like really like. But then outside of that, I've never like said definitively this is my person.
Not saying that those two guys are the best actors. I'm just saying they're my favorite.
They're your favorite.
Like, of course, you got the Denzels.
Yeah.
The DiCaprios. The Robert De Niro's, and of course, like I have great respect and love them as actors.
Yeah.
My personal two favorite is going to be Pedro and Timothy.
For sure. Okay, so let's get into this. We are back to review the next episode of Invincible. It dropped. Another slower paced episode. We get the Powerplex storyline.
Yeah.
Mark is dealing with kind of still troubling thoughts with his brother, but going back and forth in terms of how this world views their father. And they have the whole memorial for the people that him and his father killed when he was trying to stop him back in season 1 in Chicago. We learned throughout that there's this character, forgot his actual name, but he goes by Powerplex now.
Scott, I think.
Scott something. But he is now looking for revenge because his sister and niece died in that incident. And he has a minor superpower that he's able to exploit a little bit with the help of working for the GAD. That is what it's called, right? GDA, Global Defense Alliance. And so he goes on a rampage to try and get Mark's attention. Doesn't really happen till the end of the episode. All kind of culminates in a very emotionally weighted episode, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
And we get a very, very rough scene at the end in a good way, like a good, both in a good way and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And then we get the big ball buster at the end, the big reveal.
Yeah.
which we'll get into at the a little closer to the end of this episode,
sure.
going into the final 2 episodes of this season, because we are already there. Are you
Yeah.
sad?
A little bit. Yeah. No, I mean, of course, I wish a show like this can go forever.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
it's just.
luckily for you, they have claimed that they will be doing this entire comic run.
I know. They've claimed
So,
8 seasons. So.
If they can, did they say 8 specifically? Interesting. Okay, that's new for me, because that puts into perspective how I'm going to be processing a lot of information, knowing that it's like 8.
So what? This is 3? Season 3?
This is season 3, and so honestly, like while watching this episode, just to give my thoughts a little bit at the top, I was a little bit worried because I had kind of guessed from the beginning what this season was probably going to culminate in.
Okay.
But I didn't know how they were going to get there. I didn't know how long they were going to take to get there. But I had 2 guesses really, actually, as to like what it would actually culminate in, because it could be either one of them. And for a second, going through last episode, I wasn't worried. They cut, solid come down episode in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
But this episode, we were like 20 minutes in. I was kind of like, this is another like pretty slow paced episode. When are they going to be getting to this stuff? Because then I was like checking the episode lists. I was like, they don't really got many left. Like, are they going to get to the what
Did you
I
already read
think
the
they're going to get to?
descriptions? Did you already read the descriptions of the others?
I hadn't yet. So I hadn't read the descriptions. I did go through, and I don't know if on Amazon they have the specific descriptions. I think they just have the titles, at least on the app, like on the phone. Maybe I'm wrong, but I only read the title names.
Okay.
So I haven't read the descriptions for it, but I did figure that they were getting to what we're going to get to later in this episode. But I was worried for a second. I was like, are we taking this maybe a little bit too slow? Like, I feel like we kind of need to get to this. But then after they revealed what they revealed at the end, that kind of put things in perspective. I was like, okay, this will be fine still. And it did give me a timeline of where I think they're heading into season 4 with, which is going to be a doozy of a season. So this is a lot of setup. But what were your like initial responses? Like we said, slower episode, more emotionally weighted, geared episode.
Definitely emotional. I think they were just like, pacing is always like very important with scenes like this. Obviously, the writers have big picture, right? And so they know, okay, we want to culminate to this. We need to, I felt like the first few episodes, honestly, probably the first half of the season was like, all right, there's a lot of ground we got to make up to get to where we want to get, how we want to end the season. And we covered so much ground in those first half of the season. Then they realized, okay, like we need to slow it down just a little bit, and then we're gonna end it on like, whatever they're planning on ending it with. This episode I really like though, because again, I don't have that perspective. I'm just taking every episode as it comes, and just enjoying it, enjoying the ride. I thought they were in their bag, writing wise. I think they showed a side or a deeper level to their writing that we've seen before, but like they like really leaned into it, like this whole like emotional arc.
Yeah,
like we've seen it, emotional scenes, we've seen emotional arcs, but like not to this level. Like this was like tugging on heartstrings.
It's heavy. It's a heavy episode.
But the beginning of the episode was fun. I liked how when Oliver was fighting Elephant Man or whatever his name is. One, it was fun. It was cool. You see like a full circle.
Mm-hmm.
He's now teaching Oliver when Omni-Man was teaching him. But then like the fact that Elephant Man like was so self-aware of what was happening, that was hilarious.
I'm not your training dummy.
He's like, wait a second. I'm not a training guy.
Well, because did you notice too? Like
And
30
Oliver
seconds
is like,
later, Invincible was like, "Yeah, it's what my dad did for me too. Same guy."
Yeah, that's what he heard. And and he's like, I'm not a training. I'm a super villain.
Yeah.
Oliver's like, nah, you're not. No,
You're
you're a training guy. you're a training guy for sure.
He's such a funny like Rhino spoof. I love him.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so obviously Oliver takes him out back to the woodshed.
Yeah,
and just
not even close.
Pummels him. I think the conversation they have after, it seemed like this is not the first time we fought him. Probably fought him like a few times. It just probably beats the brakes off him every single time.
Yeah.
So that was really funny. Really fun to be self-aware. And then we get into the arc, obviously, of Powerplex.
Powerplex. Yep.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I have something to confess.
Okay.
So we had a dear friend that was in town last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so he stopped by, and I was hanging out with him, and he was like, "Yo, let's go to the comic book store." I was like, "Oh shoot, I haven't been there in a while. I'm down." So we went to the comic book store, and we're looking around, we're seeing like Funko Pops, looking at board games, looking at comic books. Just like more like Marvel stuff. We're like
Mhm.
looking at, oh, like this is the Infinity Saga. Oh, like we were looking through it. It's like, reminiscing on the movies and everything and whatnot. Well, my eyes kind of went to the right, but I got to the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this fat book. It was like this thick. No, hold on, this thick. And it was the Invincible. It was the whole comic run in this fat book that was thicker than the Bible. And we're like, whoa. And so we sinned. We took a look. And so we're just flipping around. Like I first started where I just like opened the book.
Yeah.
And I probably opened like halfway or 3/4.
Oh gosh.
And I just
Joe.
opened it. I'm like,
the clock.
I was like, honestly, made zero sense to me. If you ask me right now, like, what did I see?
I hope not.
I have no idea.
I hope we don't get to a point in the
Maybe-
show where you're like,
No,
You're like, that's the
no, I
Raven
think- no,
through the
you,
eye.
you give my memory way too much credit. I forgot to pick up my daughter this afternoon. Okay, so you think I'm gonna remember what I see? And probably when that part where I saw, we're probably not gonna see until 2036. You think I'm gonna remember? There's no shot. Anyways, then we like go to the beginning and go like way earlier in the book. I open it and it's like a scene from like season 1. I'm like, oh, okay, I remember this.
yeah.
I think it was Omni-Man and Mark having dialogue. I was like, okay, cool. Then we kept flipping, and eventually we got to, oh my gosh, this was like this episode this
Yeah.
week. Like we saw it. And so we then like looked at each other and we like flipped the page and we're like, this is probably next episode. And so we look like maybe 2 pages in. And so I saw Powerplex.
Yeah.
I saw the character. And then the only thing I saw that made sense, I wasn't reading it. I wasn't reading the
Just looking at the
dialogue.
pictures
I was
and stuff
looking
like
at the
that.
pictures.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it was just, I was flipping through and I saw the scene of him killing his family.
Mm.
And I was like, dang. And then it went. and I told Lucas, and I was like, all right, I can't
Definitely just
go
spoiled
anymore.
that week's episode for you.
Huh?
You're like,
Yeah,
I definitely just spoiled this week's episode.
I saw it, and I wanted, and like I just indulged in it. I did it right, and so I did it. So I coming into this episode, all that to say, I spoiled this episode for me. Now I'm glad I did it. Here's why. One, grand scheme of things, didn't spoil too much.
pretty small episode. Like,
Grand scheme of things, I just spoiled this episode. And I still enjoy the episode. That being said, I would never do what you do and research everything about what I'm watching as I'm watching it and spoil everything for myself, because it was still like, I still enjoyed the episode. It still was like tough to watch, like that scene. But like it just took the punch out. Like it took, I feel like that should have like really hit me as a father myself. You know what I mean? So like, I kind of knew where, when they were doing the final fight, I was like, so when is this going to happen? Like, when is he going to do it? How is he going to do it? And I'm like asking these questions instead of like enjoying the dialogue and like sitting in this moment and being present and allowing the moment to get there at its own time. And for it to happen, I go, dude, there's no, like so it's like, it kind of took away a little bit. And so I'm glad I did it, because I realized I do not like that form of, digesting or consuming, my shows or my media. And it thankfully didn't spoil like anything like major. It's just like really just this one episode. And then, so I don't know what's coming next. I didn't look any further. I don't know.
It's really ironic that happened like to you, because like I actually like a lot of these smaller storylines I don't really remember a lot, and I actually did go back and kind of catch up in the comics to where we are currently.
I want to buy that comic,
but I unfortunately haven't been able to do it because I don't own the comics. I was doing it through like Comixology at one point. That was on my iPad, which is dead and gone.
Oh yeah,
Forever.
No, not dead and gone. Dead and lost.
Dead and lost.
It's probably still alive.
Maybe debatable. So I was watching. So have you ever heard of Comics Explained on YouTube? He was a big reason. Like I knew a lot growing up just because like binging his videos. And so he does the whole Invincible run. So I was kind of listening to that. It's a little easier to listen at work. It's like kind of more like a podcast rather
It's like
than
an audiobook.
what me sitting there and actually like flipping through pages.
Yeah.
So I was kind of catching up through that, and he skipped the Powerplex stuff, or I just went past it. I just started past it, and I didn't even see it. So, but I did notice that the comic does kind of do things out of order.
Yeah, I didn't notice
from the
that.
show, which I didn't really realize how much it did that, but it actually does that quite a bit.
But
And
it's
I
like-
did.
But I think it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. They
really-
do it. They do it in a good way. They've done it in the perfect way so far. Like
Yeah.
it's not taken away. It's not added to the story.
Yeah, it doesn't doesn't move the needle.
I will
doesn't-
say though, I didn't remember really how this Powerplex story panned out. I knew
Gotcha.
he was a character. I just didn't remember how it happened or what his deal was. So that whole episode, ironically for me watching it, actually, I was very much like when they. I kind of thought that that's where it was going towards because they kind of teased it a couple times, like him maybe hurting the baby.
Yeah.
And I did kind of think that was probably how it was going to end. But even when it happened, I was just like, damn, bro.
I know.
That's
It's
tough.
unsettling.
Unsettling.
I don't like seeing
Yeah.
dead kids on.
Yeah, I
And I
didn't think they were going to
understand-
show it either.
And I understand that's right, like that's a decision.
yeah.
You know you're gonna invoke some sort of reaction to that.
Yeah.
But I just think there's like still lines.
Sure.
And I think kids, like dead kids, shouldn't be.
For sure.
And that's just me, like a personal conviction. I just like don't think that's. I don't know. It's just.
I think a lot of
very
people would
unsettling.
agree with you. No,
Yeah,
it's
well,
not,
it's
it's
like,
not typically
there's
done even
nobody
for the
that's-
grittiest of shows.
I know there's nobody that's like actively looking for shows that kill kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, but then when you see it, it's just like, but if you kill an adult, it's like, okay, it's like
Yeah.
way easier to digest. And it's like a kid,
Yeah.
man, a defenseless, not even a kid, a baby.
yeah.
You know, it's just like,
And
that's not
Yeah.
cool.
and on another quick tangent too, like on the topic of like surprising yourself and getting that same punch
Yeah.
that you get. Unfortunately, I am a lore whore. Like once I discover something I like, I really like
Yeah.
dive very deep into the lore because I just love lore. Like
I'm doing that right now.
I don't with what
Witcher.
with so you're
I'm
going through the
going-
Witcher thing.
Yeah, I've played now I've played through 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Just recently.
Mm.
Just finished the first DLC for the third one. I'm working on the second one,
Yep.
and then I'm going to rewatching the shows, watching the new animated movies, and I'm just deep diving into like
Yeah.
everything pre
Yeah.
the show and pre the
Yeah.
video games.
So I unfortunately do that with a lot of products that I come across.
You do.
I don't hate it though because like I love the idea of something I've read and know a lot about and then seeing it come to fruition on a TV screen. There's something about that for me that gives me more satisfaction, like when I know the plot and that I can actually see it unraveling on a screen. That's just a really cool experience I always have watching these. It never takes away really from the show when I do it. Sure, it takes out some of the surprises. I will say though, it did bite me a little bit on this most recent product that I watched. So I just got done finishing Attack on Titan,
Yeah.
which I am not an anime person. I do not listen to anime.
Nope.
Or watch anime, sorry. But I took a chance on this because I had seen a clip of it years ago, and then I saw another clip of it like a month or two ago, and I was like, I should try this. But before I tried it, I spent like probably 4 days thinking about it, and in those 4 days, I kind of did a little bit of research, not like a crazy amount, because I stopped myself with that one because I was like, listen, if I get too far into this, I don't want to. I really feel like I should just watch the show at that point. There's no point in me just going through the lore and not watching it.
Yeah.
So let me watch it. But I did get a very certain thing spoiled for me, and spoiler for Attack on Titan. So if you haven't watched it and you do want to watch it, cover your ears right now or skip ahead.
Yeah.
But I know you've kind of watched a little bit of it,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to say like everything, but there's a very big twist in that show that, from what I've seen online, is like one of the biggest twists in anime history.
Is it late in the show or early?
No, it's early in the show. It's like
is it like first season, second season?
I want to say it's either the beginning of the third season or it's the end of the second season. I don't remember which one.
Is it when? Oh, go ahead. Keep
It's
going.
so these two characters that basically have been with you the entire show
Uh-huh.
are revealed to be traitors,
Yeah.
and it's like one of the craziest plot twists in anime history. Because honestly, like throughout the show, you really have no indication of it.
Yeah.
There's some clues, and honestly, the way that this guy's written this show, so beautiful. Like there's a lot of like really fun clues that you can find once you've actually seen it happen. But for the most part, like if you're just watching this for a first run through, you have no idea what's happening.
Uh-huh.
So I watched it through, and but I agree. I had that moment that you're having, that you would just explain, where like I knew this thing was happening, but I didn't know where it was happening in the story.
Uh-huh.
And so as I was watching the show, it kept getting to the point where like I wasn't focusing on it entirely, but I was like, all right, when's this gonna happen? Because I know who those two are.
Yeah,
When's this
sucks.
going to happen? And then
That
when it happened, the
sucks.
scene was still amazing. Just like
Yeah.
an incredible scene.
But imagine if you had no idea.
But if I had no idea, because like I was telling you, I called you about this because I had just got done watching YouTube videos of people react to this like for the first
I
time.
love watching those.
And their reactions are just like,
What the?
holy, like one guy's in tears. He was a bit dramatic. I kind of was sick of him. But one guy was like crying his eyes out at this twist. And all these other people were just like, what the? They literally, like, when they got to the plot of, like, when he starts revealing it by his dialogue, they're like, wait, what did it? I misread that. Like, because they're reading the subtitles because they're watching it in Japanese.
Yeah.
I misread. Let me back it up.
Yeah.
And they're like, he said what? He said, and so I just, like, I saw that and I was like, damn, man. Like, I probably really missed out on that plot twist. Like, that was a big one. That was a really big one.
Yeah.
And like I said, like, I really don't think I would have caught it coming. Like, maybe, but there's really nothing going on in the show that shows you that that's really what it's leading towards. And I agree. Like, that's the biggest time it's really bitten me in the back, where I've been like, I really would have liked to maybe not known that. If I could go back and erase just that one thing. And I didn't even research that. I just happened to stumble across it. So, like, that was a bummer. But yeah, surprise is no fun. So I understand, like, the point of view of not wanting to do it. I totally respect
for sure. And it's been hard since we've been friends because, like, we're just so different.
Yeah.
And it's like, it used to be annoying. I used to find it very annoying because it's like, not only do I want to, like, experience these, like, crazy moments, but it's like, and this is, I'll just turn into a therapy session right now. But it's just like, we would see something. It could be Marvel. It could have been Marvel, or it could have been like anything nerd related.
Mm-hmm.
And I could like have one of those moments where I'm like, just what? Like, that's so freaking cool, or like storytelling. And then like I want to go share that with you, and you're like, yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. I had seen that. I had seen that when I was looking, reading through everything, and it's just like, okay, it's like I have nobody to share that with.
Yeah.
And so it used to be like really annoying because it's like, but like I want somebody to appreciate it with. But as obviously, like we've said before, we've been best friends for like 6 years now.
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously it's not a big deal, but I just realized that that's how you like to consume it. And, I think you have found enjoyment in me being the opposite.
No, I have, because it gets the good balance of how we're consuming
for dialogue,
these
but like also like when I watched Game of Thrones, like you had watched through it on, like I think
that one was one of the few I actually didn't do like a lore dive on before, other than things I had heard on the internet because it's just been out for so long.
Yeah,
which
I think you took enjoyment in my initial reactions to everything.
Yeah.
Even though you'd already seen the show.
Yeah,
and you had
me keeping the Red Wedding a secret from you was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
I know, because
the way this guy was gawking,
dude,
over Robb Stark.
Oh, balls deep, dude.
For
months,
bro.
Dude, not months. I watched the whole show in 3 weeks, but I
was it only 3 weeks?
Yeah, dude, I watched the whole show.
It was a lot longer than that.
No, bro, I was unemployed.
Well, since we're therapy sessioning as well, I think this comes from a deep-rooted impatience that I have.
Yeah.
And, like, when I get to these products, like, I just want to know what happens so bad.
Yeah.
And the fact that I have outlets to really, like, find what I can find.
Yeah.
Which is crazy how much you can actually just, like, find out about things these days.
Oh, for sure, dude.
Without even...
That being said, though, what you said, I actually, I think we should do either segment on the pod, or... Because I've watched anime. I watched in high school. I've watched a few of them. But you just saying that you've never been a fan. You've never really liked it. But this show you really, really enjoyed. If
you're leading this into let's get into some other anime, I'm going to stop you right there.
Really? You wouldn't even take a chance on some other highly regarded
It would have to be very particular things, because like the reason Attack on Titan scratched my itch was the kaiju element of it. Was the
Titans.
And I don't know what about it. It was like the mythology too. It's very heavily based on Norse mythology. That didn't really like do it for me, but I don't know what it was about what tickled my fancy with that. I also do love gore. I love like gory stuff. So the whole element of like them getting eaten all the time was interesting to me. But which also I honestly knew actually very little of the story.
Yeah.
I thought it was a completely different story hearing about it from the internet for a long time. And then once I got into what the story's actually about, I was like, oh, this is like not at all what I thought it was.
Yeah.
So I'll gladly go back and recap Attack on Titan sometime in the future, but
I know.
I don't. It's going to
So,
be
it's
very
just-
hard pressed to get me into any other anime.
The reason I say that though is because anime has some of the best storytelling.
Yeah, I agree.
In just TV show history.
I agree. It's more of the device in which they execute it that I just can't get behind half the time.
What do you mean?
So like in anime, the style, a lot of the art styles are just a little too goofy for me. They're just a little too ridiculous and out there. And B, the way in which like dialogue is portrayed, the way in which, you know, the exposition is laid out through characters sometimes can just be a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
And I don't always necessarily love that aspect of anime, and that's honestly what turns me off to it more than anything. Like, I don't understand why we can't get across a paragraph of dialogue without like sounding like we're screaming the entire time. And that may sound stupid, but like legitimately that like frustrates me watching
it's
it.
the cultural
It's the way in which they portray their stories. I get that.
genre.
It just doesn't scratch my itch. So I will say, like, there were moments like that on Attack on Titan, but honestly, it really wasn't. And that's what I've heard that about Attack on Titan, that it's different. It's a very different anime.
But it's really well regarded.
Oh, it's
really
it's considered one of the best animes ever, and I it's one of my favorite shows of all time now. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Yeah. So,
anyways, we need to get back.
We
to
do need to get back to Invincible. So let's get a little bit into the plot. I will say, like, I do agree with what you were saying earlier. There's a lot of, when they don't have a lot of action going on, there's a lot of emotional depth that they've been exploring the past 2 episodes. This one, they got into like, well, how can Nolan ever be forgiven? Like, can Earth ever forgive him?
Yeah.
Is he still a bad guy because of what he's done?
The way they convey that what you just said through Oliver is so well done.
Yeah, it makes you believe it.
No, but because it's like they don't make Oliver articulate it in a way that's way advanced. Like it's so kid.
It is,
like,
because he's so young.
Because he's young. He's a kid. He's like, well, Dad saved people.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, he did, but he killed a lot of people. And it's like, but he helped more people than he killed. It's so simplistic.
And that's an overarching theme
simple.
Throughout the entire comic book run and throughout the entire show we're going to keep seeing, is the idea of like, A, is there actually any good people in the world or good beings in the universe? And B, like, is there any way to really correct the red on your ledger? Like, there's only doing the best you can do. And that's a huge theme going throughout Invincible that Mark has to come to grips with, that, you know, we see Nolan kind of coming to grips with up in space, is like, at some point, yes, you've done all this in your past, but at some point you do have to say, especially for a world this big and this large, and for characters as old as Nolan.
Exactly. For characters that live centuries
it's
centuries.
Like, at what point does it become like, legitimately, I understand I did those things, but that's my past. I can't do anything about it. I can only move forward and do my best.
But then at the same time,
for sure,
you get the perspective of like humans.
Yes.
And where it's like,
yes,
I understand that, but what if you just do it again?
Which is Powerplex's issue. Is like, hey, I don't care if you've killed hundreds of thousands of people over thousands of years. You killed these 2 people that I loved. You're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for the 2,000 people you just killed on Earth.
Yeah.
I don't care how many millions of people you've killed in your past. You're paying for them. Yeah. And it's like the small-minded point of view that humanity is always going to have in this story.
For sure.
And that's going to carry out as well, too. You're going to see a lot of that. So.
But it's like the way they write it, too, is like everybody's perspective and everybody's motive is justified.
Yeah.
Like, no matter whose angle you look at the story from, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
They all have an angle that they could take, which is like, I am in the right.
Yeah.
You know?
Humans on Earth, it's, you know, the angle is, I mean, you killed hundreds of thousands of people in that little one season of television. Yeah. You murdered friggin' hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah, you might be like, maybe you woke up and changed your mind, but what makes you say you won't do it again?
Yeah.
And then you have Cecil's perspective where it's like, well, listen, I have to defend the Earth, and like, sure, you've been good up until this point, and you've helped us a lot, but like, I've got to have a plan because there's nothing in this world that could stop you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Mark's perspective, you know, it's everybody's perspective is like justified,
Yeah.
and it just makes for great storytelling
Yeah.
because like nobody's wrong, but ultimately Mark is our center mass and he is our main character, so like everything will stem from his perspective. Like we'll always go back to his perspective of everything.
And you got that perspective between him and Oliver too, which is another aspect, another side of the coin, is like, but he's our dad. And do we love him despite anything because he's our dad?
Yeah.
And like that's another aspect that they have to deal with. Like you said, it's from Mark's point of view. We see Mark starting to really grip with the fact that, like, yeah, he's thought about these people, and yes, he tried to save them, and yes, he was thinking about them as he was trying to save them. But like reading their names is a different, that's a different weight on his back.
That specific line, like it's cool because like everybody that's watching the show, right, brings their life perspective to it, and they take certain lines mean more to them than it maybe other people. But like that specifically too is like as somebody who is like had father issues, like that dialogue or that thought process like hit. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I have two thoughts on that, and it's like one is like
not so positive.
You know, one's like, you know, well, no, you don't have to love. No, you don't have to love him.
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And then there's another part is like, but at the end of the day, I know not having a dad is like always thinking like, man, I just miss having my dad.
Yeah.
And it's like that bond is like, it is something that is, it's hard to explain. The bond between a child and their father. And then they have the flashback of like little Mark. Because he grew up most of his life.
Just that one scene and you get all of the emotions and grip of what it is.
He grew up, I mean, at this point, what we see Mark, probably 95% of his life, he had his, he was like, his dad was his best friend.
They said it's only been like a year or like 8 months.
No, they said
what did they say? They said they gave a timeline towards it.
Yeah, but it wasn't long.
It wasn't long.
It wasn't super long. 2 years?
Maybe 2 years, yeah.
You know, but you know, so it's like, man, it just
it's great. It's good. It's really good storytelling in a very
really
slow episode.
What's up with I thought this was funny. This is probably on purpose, but Powerplex's origin is quite literally just Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that as we were as I was watching it unfold.
I was like, and it's like this show sometimes does parody, you know, like that.
It's his power set's a little different.
Well, but I'm saying
power
the origin.
set kind of the origin is exactly the same.
Nobody, and he, you know, then he steals technology, or he stole technology, but then Electro, like, a situation happened at his job that gave him this electricity powers, and now he's like set out on. Yeah.
It's funny too to see Mark struggle with a character like that for like 4 seconds, just because it's like, why are you struggling with him, bro?
He didn't even struggle. He just didn't want to fight him.
I mean, yeah, he didn't, but he emotionally struggled. He got licks. Well, that's part of like the evolution of Mark that we're getting
Mark
to.
Mark was fighting him emotionally.
Yeah.
This guy was fighting him physically.
Well, that's part of the evolution of Mark that we're getting to is like, and we'll see that later on in the story, is how he fights now is just like, he is always fighting with the mindset of,
I don't want to kill you.
Let's talk first. I don't want to kill you. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt other people
because
like around me.
I can and I will.
And it really limits his like power set. It really does.
Yeah.
It limits him to being an actual powerful character. And that's why you see villains like this
getting licks
in and like kind of hurting him in some aspects.
Same with Spider-Man.
So
Spider-Man, it's like he just doesn't if he didn't hold back, he would kill you.
You know what I think you can go read, because I don't think it actually intertwines with the story at all. There is an Invincible Spider-Man crossover.
That's lit.
I'm like 90% positive there is.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very fun. I think there's also another character in the Invincible universe that's supposed to be like Spider-Man, but he's not.
That's funny.
That looks like it. So, just like Darkwing is like Batman, basically.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we get all that great emotional beats, just a heavy episode, and then we get to the end. And that, again, I was like thinking throughout this entire thing, I was like, so we're really just going to try and cram this in the last 2 episodes. That's what we're going to do. I think it's going to be okay, but we get the big reveal at the end that we already knew Angstrom was watching him. I believe we knew that the orbs were his. I thought we had
don't think so.
I thought we had seen him at least one more part earlier in the season. I'm almost positive we did. I'll go back and rewatch it.
Dang. Actually, I can't remember.
We'll confirm, but I'm pretty sure they just showed him. We didn't know anything else. Like it's a brief scene.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying it.
Either way, though, you see that
vaguely
Angstrom
jogs.
is there, and you see who he's collected.
Yeah.
So what was your and it's revealed that he's got many versions of Mark.
Yeah.
And you had sent me a post afterwards about like all the different marks. And he was breaking it down. You were like, "Can you read this? I don't know if I can see this." And I'm glad you did that because it wasn't like great detailed stuff, but there were some things in it that I think you would have not liked had you read it. And then going into these last 2 episodes. So, but what were your thoughts on that? Like, what did you take away from that? What do you think is happening?
Yeah, that this is Mark is gonna have to kill some people.
This is bad, bro.
Yeah, some damage is gonna be.
This is
This is where the Guardians die this season. This is where they die this season. I don't know what's happening, but I will. There is a trend that I've recognized that the Guardians will die every season, and they will just come back the next season. They're like, no, like we just went to the hospital and we're good. Just a hospital bill later.
Yeah.
Cecil paid it. We're good. We're Gucci. So they're gonna die.
Yeah.
They have to die. Just because of that trend. But Mark's got to kill some people.
Yeah.
There's no way he can just sit there and talk to all of those Marks and say, guys, hold on.
Yeah.
Counterpoint, you fight with me.
And I don't know how it's revealed. I don't remember how it's revealed in the comics. Because again, I watched a video on this. They kind of skimmed through this exact detail part because they're not reading every single page verbatim. But we do know like basically how a lot of these marks got to who they are. I just don't know how much detail they actually explain that in the comics, or they give you just a brief rundown. So I'm wondering if they're gonna like do that in the show at all.
Like a montage.
Yeah, like I don't know if they're gonna do that in the show at all. Like give you like because you can see the character designs and you could probably assume a couple of them from what.
Yeah, one looked like Viltrumite.
One's like straight Viltrumite. He's got a mustache.
One had the Omni-Man suit on.
Yeah. There's a couple of them. I don't know if they're gonna go through those details. There's one called Sinister Mark. He was the black one with the cape.
Okay. I didn't see him, but sure.
There's another one that's like bald and kind of wearing a white Viltrumite suit, but it's like a deep V-neck, and he's like bald, and he's got the invincible eyes like basically in his skull.
I saw the one that looked like he looked like Spider-Man.
Yeah,
he had the full mask. Like
yes.
It's just like a
He looked a couple
cool.
of those too.
He
There's a
looked
guy
cool.
with like a bandit mask one.
Oh, I saw the blanket.
Yeah, the blanket mask
thing.
guy.
Yeah.
There's one with a mohawk. He's just got like a straight up mohawk. Yeah, this is what we're getting into these last 2 episodes, and it's gonna be very exciting. Because I'm pumped. Because
Dude, imagine again. This is, I mean, don't tell me, but as you're like talking through, obviously, I assume there's gonna be some sort of confrontation.
What?
But what if Alan and Omni-Man are like, all right, now that we're cool, let's go let's go get our people so we can like go do what we're trying to do. And then they come and there's just all these marks. And like, what the frick is going on? who do we fight? Do we fight? Are you friends? That'd be funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. I'm sure we'll see more of Nolan and
I hope so.
And Alan before the
I
season's
hope we
over.
see them before.
There is a chance we might not, but
Even
we
if
should.
it's just like dialogue, it doesn't have to be a fight. It's just dialogue related.
So in catching up in the comics, I said last episode like I wanted to catch up to where we were and read it as after I watched the episode, like catch up a little farther and a little farther and a little farther.
Yep.
I did end up just watching more and more to refresh my brain. So I did see a lot moving forward again.
Sure.
Again, I knew those beats were the pig beats, so like I knew those were coming. But just seeing them again got me really hyped moving forward for what's happening. And I'm very excited.
There was a sliver of chance that you would have been surprised by maybe something.
Oh no, not at all. No. This stuff we're getting into is like the big beats that I remember. This isn't the small beat story anymore. So it's gonna be good. We got lots of cool stuff. All right, I think that's pretty much it. The only thing we didn't really talk about was the title card thing they did this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm not like literally 10 minutes in, I was like, did we get one? Like I don't remember seeing it.
I don't ever go into an episode like I can't wait till I see the title card.
I
let it happen.
I don't either. But there was a point in the episode where I was like, I don't remember like seeing it. I'm sure, but then I was like, no, it had to have been there. And then as it started to like flash on, I was like, oh, this is funny. But then it actually turned to the title card, like, and it's in the middle of the episode.
Yeah,
you're just like,
funny.
what? But that made me laugh a good bit. How they because they've been listening. They've been listening to the streets.
Dude, it's funny.
It's really funny. It will
I
never
love
get
it.
old.
Yeah,
It
no.
really won't.
And he never says Invincible. Like,
No.
It cuts to it.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the next dialogue.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It's
it
not like
skips the word.
Yeah, it doesn't. It just skips the word entirely.
It's very good. It was a very creative way of doing it. But I'm excited, man. I'm really excited. We got the penultimate episode next week, and then the finale after that.
Yeah. This penultimate is about to go crazy.
Yeah. I hope it's a long episode. I think it says what the time is on the Amazon stuff, but I don't remember what it was. But yeah, I'm excited, man. Getting to next week, we'll be back to cover it. Of course, probably around Friday when it comes out. Thursday or Friday, the episode will drop.
Yep.
So I'm excited. But you got any last minute thoughts heading into the penultimate season finale?
Timothy Chalamet, if you heard my rant, you can hit me up and we can be best friends.
Yeah, I do hear you listen to some podcasts, Timmy.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you on and interview you.
I just want to be your friend. You don't have to come on. Just want to be his friend. Go Knicks.
Is he a Knicks fan?
Yes.
Like a big Knicks fan?
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, that's going to do it for us at the house. We've had a lot of fun hanging, talking this episode. We'll be back next week. Till then.
Peace.